My fiancé threatened to leave me if I didn't abandon my sick brother. What happened next will shock you. I never thought I'd be in this situation. I'm Natalie, 28, a wedding planner in a small town in Texas. I've always prided myself on being responsible, level-headed, and above all, loyal. I've had my fair share of ups and downs, some relationships that didn't work out, a few bumps in the road with family, but nothing like this. Nothing could have prepared me for what happened when my fiancé Dylan made a demand that would change everything. But let me backtrack for a moment so you understand the full story. My family, especially my younger brother Sean, has always been a huge part of my life. Sean's 3 years younger than me and has always been the life of the party, funny, spontaneous, and just a generally kind person. We've always been close. He was the kind of brother who'd stay up late watching movies with me when I was feeling down, or call me to talk about anything and everything. He had this magnetic personality that made everyone around him smile. But last year, everything changed. Sean was diagnosed with a rare form of leukemia. It hit us like a freight train. I remember sitting in the sterile, cold doctor's office, the words chemotherapy and terminal ringing in my ears like a cruel song on loop. I knew cancer was a battle, but I didn't know it would be this fight. Sean was a fighter, though. He kept pushing through the pain, his sense of humor intact, even when he lost his hair and his energy. My parents were devastated, as you can imagine, but they were also the type to keep things together on the surface. I, on the other hand, couldn't stop thinking about him. I didn't want to leave his side. I became his primary caregiver, even when it meant putting my life on hold. I gave up most of my work hours to make sure he had everything he needed. I went with him to every doctor's appointment, cooked for him, and made sure he didn't feel alone during his toughest days. I wasn't just his sister, I was his rock. Around that time, I had been dating Dylan for nearly a year. We had met through mutual friends and hit it off right away. Dylan was 30, tall, handsome, and had a successful career as a lawyer. He was everything I had ever dreamed of in a partner, ambitious, caring, and so charming that he could talk to anyone. From the moment we met, I could see our lives blending together. We talked about marriage, kids, the future. Dylan had a way of making everything feel like it was already in place. But when Sean's diagnosis came, I could feel the tension between me and Dylan starting to build. At first, Dylan was supportive. He came with me to the hospital a few times, helped with little things around the house, and reassured me when I was on the verge of a breakdown. But over time, as the treatments got more intense and Sean's condition worsened, something changed. Dylan started becoming distant. It wasn't immediate. At first, I thought he was just stressed out from work. But then, I noticed the subtle changes. He stopped asking about Scene's condition. He started pulling away during the weekends, making excuses for why he couldn't come with me to the hospital. When I'd vent about how hard it was watching Sean suffer, Dylan would shrug it off, telling me I couldn't carry the weight of the world on my shoulders. He started making snide comments about how much of my time I was devoting to Sean. One night we were having dinner at his apartment, and he casually mentioned that he thought I was overdoing it with Sean. He said I needed to focus on us more, that we couldn't keep putting off planning our wedding because of a situation we couldn't control. I was floored. "What do you mean? Sean's my brother. He's dying, Dylan. I'm trying to be there for him." He leaned back in his chair, an expression I couldn't quite read on his face. "I get that, but we've talked about getting married, and we need to start planning our life together. You can't keep putting your brother first. It's not healthy." I tried to brush it off at the time. I told him that I understood and that we'd make time for us when I could. But the cracks were starting to show, and I was starting to see a side of Dylan that I hadn't seen before. The caring, thoughtful fiancé I had fallen in love with was being replaced by someone who seemed increasingly self-centered and distant. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Thursday, and Sean had just finished his 3rd round of chemotherapy. The doctors were worried about his progress. His blood counts were low, and he was struggling with severe nausea and fatigue. I had spent the whole day at the hospital trying to make him comfortable, holding his hand as he slept. I didn't want to leave his side, but I promised Dylan that I'd be home for dinner. When I walked through the door, I could feel the tension in the air. Dylan was sitting on the couch, his expression grim. "Hey, I'm sorry I'm late. Natalie, we need to talk," Dylan interrupted, his voice calm but firm. I froze. The way he said it made my heart race. My instincts told me something was off, but I didn't know how far it would go. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to sound casual, even though my pulse was pounding in my ears. He looked me in the eyes, his jaw clenched. "I'm done, Natalie. I can't keep doing this. You're choosing him over me. You've been choosing Sean over me for months now, and I'm not going to be a part of this anymore." I blinked, shocked by his words. "What do you mean? Dylan, I'm just trying to be there for my brother. He needs me. You know how hard this has been for me. I can't just walk away from him." "I get that. I really do," he said, his voice getting colder. "But it's been months, Natalie. You've been so consumed with taking care of him that you've completely neglected our relationship. You're always at the hospital. You don't have time for me. You don't have time for us anymore." "I'm sorry, but Sean is dying." My voice cracked as I tried to hold it together. "How can you even say that to me? He's my brother, Dylan. I can't just stop being there for him." He stood up, taking a step toward me. "I'm telling you, if you don't start prioritizing us, if you don't start choosing me over him, then I'm leaving. I can't do this anymore, Natalie. I'm not going to keep waiting around while you waste all your time on him. I deserve more than that." I stared at him, feeling the air leave my lungs. The words he was saying hit me like a slap in the face. Was he serious? Was this really happening? "I can't believe you're saying this," I whispered. "You want me to abandon my brother just so I can focus on you?" "It's not about abandoning him," he said, his voice rising. "It's about balance. I'm not asking you to stop caring for him, but you're not even present anymore. You're lost in this world of hospital visits and doctor's appointments. Where do I fit in? Where does our future fit in?" I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell him how unfair this was, how cruel it was for him to make me choose, but the words wouldn't come. I felt numb, as if the floor had dropped out from under me. "I need time to think," I said, turning away, trying to hold back the tears that were threatening to spill. Dylan grabbed my arm, pulling me back toward him. "If you don't make a choice, I'm gone, Natalie. I can't be with someone who can't choose me." The next few days were a blur. I was torn. I didn't know what to do. Dylan's words kept echoing in my mind, and my love for him felt like it was slipping away with each passing hour. But my brother was sick, and no matter how much I tried to reason with myself, I couldn't let go of him. I couldn't leave him when he needed me the most. Eventually, I made my choice. It wasn't easy, and it came with the crushing realization that I was about to lose someone who had been my partner, my confidant, my future. I sat Dylan down in the living room, my heart in my throat. "I can't leave my brother, Dylan," I said, my voice steady but filled with sorrow. "I can't abandon him. He's my family. I love you, but I can't make that choice." Dylan's face twisted with anger and frustration. "You're making a mistake. You're choosing him over me. You're choosing someone who can't even give you a future over the man who's promised to spend his life with you. Do you really want to live with that?" "I love you," I said quietly, "but I can't walk away from Sean." Dylan stood up abruptly, his fists clenched at his sides. "Then I'm done. I'm done." And just like that, he walked out the door, leaving me with the weight of the world on my shoulders. The days that followed were some of the hardest of my life. I lost the man I thought I would marry, the man I thought I would build a life with. Dylan and I never spoke again after that night, and as painful as it was, I knew I had made the right choice. Sean passed away a few months later. It was one of the most devastating experiences of my life, but I don't regret a single moment I spent by his side. I was there for him when it mattered, and that's something I can hold on to forever. I learned that life doesn't always go according to plan. Sometimes you have to make the hardest choices and live with the consequences. And in the end, family comes first.